Oh, hello internet. This is a number most of agency owners never get past. Not because the market stops them, not because they run out of clients, but because they run out of themselves. Somewhere around 8 to 12K a month, the founder becomes a bottleneck. And the brutal thing is that it's not a skill gap. It's an identity one. The version of you that built this business cannot build the next one. And most of founders will grind their entire lives rather than just admitting this fact that they are being the bottleneck in their business and they need to fix that. I'm not going to tell you to delegate more. I'm not either going to tell you that you should fire yourself from delivery and build an SOP or hire an OPS manager. You have already heard all of that. I want to do is go underneath that advice to the reason the advice keeps not working. And what I actually see when I look at a founder who's plateaued. I see someone who reviews everything before it goes to the client. I see someone who closes deals better than anyone they could afford to hire. So why hand it off? I see someone whose clients trust them and who has quietly, unconsciously reinforced their dependency at every opportunity. Actually, none of those are bad decisions in isolation. They are all very good decisions made by someone whose identity has not caught by their ambition. There are specific moments where most founders cross the line from builder to bottleneck. And the terrifying thing is most of them miss it entirely. Most of them just celebrate it. I actually want to give this a name because when you can name it, you can see it. And once you see it, you cannot ever unsee it. Here's how it works. The founders who plateau are not those weak ones. They are mostly those exceptional ones. Those doing best at their job, because exceptional founders build their business on personal performance. The business grew because they were genuinely demonstrably better than anyone they hired. That's not ego, that's often just true, and the market rewarded it. But here's the trap. The business model was built around the founder's output. Clients pay for that, and the referrals mention that very specific person, and the brand is all tied to that one person. Which means the moment the founder steps back, the thing that generated the revenue simply disappears. So it's not that delegation fails, it's that the business was never designed to run without a founder. The founder is not running an actual business, they are the business. You know, you want to know the moment it crosses over. It's when the clients start referring to you by your name, not your agency name or your business name. Let's say, I work with money. No, not I work with the agency or the business. Most people hear that and feel proud. What they have actually done is build a personal services practice disguised as an agency. So if the problem is architectural, not operational, what does the fix actually look like? Because I'll tell you now, it is not hiring. I've seen founders hire entire teams and still be the ceiling. I think about the founder development in three positions, not levels, not stages, positions. Position one is the craftsman. You are the product. You deliver the work. The revenue is actually tied to your hours at the work. So this is a fine 3 to 6K a month. Necessary and just even. It keeps going. But the ceiling in this thing is that your output or your revenue is tied to your hours put in your business. Position two is the foreman. Now, at this stage, you have hired the people, you manage delivery, but every decision of the business routes through you. Every client relationship is yours. Every standard is enforced by your presence. You have actually just added the overhead without removing yourself from the dependency chain. Like most of plateaued founders live here, I think they have made the transition, but they have not. They have just made the job harder. Position three is the architect. Now you have built the systems, you build the SOPs, you set standards, and at this stage you just select clients. But the delivery, the client relationships, and the service execution does not require your direct involvement. Your time is just spent on sales architecture and offer framing, brand position, not execution. Revenue is no longer tied to your hours spent, it's tied to your judgment. You know, most founders sprint from position 1 to position 2 and they think that they have made it, but they have not. They have just plateaued themselves, and they themselves becomes the ceiling to growth. Like becoming the bottleneck of the business, it just never grows. They think that they have built the business, but they have just created a more complicated job. The real transition happens from position 2 to position 3, and it requires something most people are not willing to do, that you need to stop being the best operator in the room. Now this is where it gets uncomfortable, because most of people always know what other systems look like. It's letting go problem, and letting go when you are genuinely better than everyone around you requires a specific kind of psychological decision. We'll get to that, what that decision actually is. Let me actually show you what this looks like when it's actually happening. 3 founders. Let's say one of them runs a creative agency. They hire people, good team, but every brief comes back wrong. So they stop writing briefs and they just start making decisions themselves. 6 months later, the 80% of the delivery comes back at them. The team now has stopped making decisions because they know that they'll be always overridden. And the founder is sitting in the corner like, why did not the hiring work? He's confused. The brief was not wrong. They never documented their own standards, because the standard was always them. Because you cannot delegate taste, but you have not actually documented into language. Now the second one runs a paid media agency. They hired a media buyer, a really fucking good one. But the founder still logs into the accounts every morning and changes bits here and there. He calls it the quality control, but it's actually an identity maintenance, because they cannot psychologically tolerate that accounts are performing 85% while it should be 100%. The reframe of this would be that 15% performance gap is costing them 40 hours a month they are spending inside the accounts. They are just solving a pride problem using business logic. Now, third founder is a consultant. Every renewal comes through them. Account manager is a scheduler, not a strategist. When a consultant goes on a vacation, 2 clients email them and they consider that a compliment. They have not built the client retention. They have built client dependency on a single person. And this business is not sellable. It's not scalable either, because the value lives in a human being, not the business, not in the systems. 3 different businesses, same architectural problem. The founder is the product, and every decision they have made has just quietly reinforced that. I want to tell you about a founder I have seen online and almost spent most of our time watching him. Good team, good clients, maybe decent margins. They just keep hitting 11 to 13K a month and then sliding back to 8. Every time, tried systems, tried SOPs, tried a new project management tool, maybe hiring OPS manager, wrote a playbook, still sliding back. Eventually, in the moment of real honesty, they sat and asked themselves one question: what would break if I stopped checking? Answer was everything, because everything had been designed around their checking. The SOPs assumed they'd review the outputs. The client relationships assumed that they'd be present. The team's decision making assumed they'd override anything important. It was not the team failure. It was the architecture failure, which was the founder's creation. The decision was not to delegate more. The decision was to accept that the business would perform at 90% of their personal standard. And the 90% of scalable business is worth more than 100% of a capped business. Mind it. That's the psychological decision I mentioned earlier. It's not a systems decision. It's not a hiring decision. It is the decision to stop measuring the business against what you personally could do and start measuring it against what it can do without you. Most people know that intellectually. Very few make that decision emotionally, because emotionally it feels like shrinking and you might feel like your identity risk ego problems. It is not. It is the first move that actually scales. So what does an architect business founder actually does with his time? Because if you're not in the accounts manager, if you're not reviewing the briefs, and if you're not on every client's call, where are you actually spending your time? Let me answer that. First thing first, you define what good actually stands for you, and define it, write it on a paper or just write a Word document. You document the standard. You make that your taste of good or your definition of good transferable, because the taste you have not translated is the taste is a reason you keep doing it yourself. Second is you build the hiring standard that encodes your judgment in the process. Second is you stop for hiring a general output or skill set, and start hiring for the standard that you have actually documented as per your definition of good work. Okay. Third, you design the client experience so the dependency of the client is on the business, not you. Client should feel like the quality of your taste or your knowledge without you to be having in the room. And fourth, you spend discretionary time on positioning and offer architecture. The decisions that determine who comes in the door, how they perceive you before the work starts, but they are willing to pay before the proposal lands. This is the leverage, and that's where you need to spend your time as a firm, because that is the work that multiplies every hour spent on everything else. The craftsman says, I need to do this myself. The architect says, I need to make this possible without me. Both are serving quality. Only one of them is building something, and I call that business. Most founders will watch this and agree with it. Intellectually, it's complicated. The logic is clear, the positions make sense, and the examples are very much relatable. But agreeing with something and acting on it, those require two completely different things, because the agreement is cognitive, action is identity. You can know you need to change your role long before you are willing to do it, or you can just understand the competence trap and still walk straight into it tomorrow morning. Decision is yours, because checking the account may seem productive and strategic work. It just feels vague. It does not make any sense for you as a business founder, because the market won't ever wait for your comfort. And the plateau is not punishing your weakness, it's the ceiling of your current self, and ceilings don't move on their own. You need to work on them. So fellas, if this framing was useful, the next video will go into how to actually go from position 2 to position 3 without your revenue collapsing in this transition. That's a far harder problem than the most people talk about it. I'll see you there. So with that, Usman signing off.